Your Londoners news update at 1:35 with Heidi Munn. Prince Harry is giving evidence in the London High Court against the publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, Associated Newspaper Limited. His case rests on 14 articles published between 2001 and 2013, which he claims used unlawfully gathered information. His lawyer alleges the articles made Prince Harry paranoid. His witness statement says that he has always had an uneasy relationship with the press since the death of his mother, but he grew up in an institution that had a policy of never complain, never explain. He is one among 7 high-profile claimants, including Liz Hurley and Elton John, with the lawyers for the accused saying that they are clutching at straws to prove the paper's alleged wrongdoing, which allegedly includes phone tapping, bugging homes, and getting access to medical records by deception. In Switzerland, President Trump has just arrived in Davos in preparation to meet world leaders at the World Economic Forum. This comes as the Prime Minister has said this afternoon that he will not yield to the President's pressure over Greenland, even under threats of a 10% tariff on imported goods, which Starmer says are completely wrong. This all comes after Downing Street was told they are letting the US down by handing over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. In other news, opponents of the new Chinese mega embassy will soon begin action to block the scheme, which was approved only yesterday. The plans would see the former Royal Mint site redeveloped into China's UK headquarters. Around 200 people live on the site and fear a loss of privacy and disruption caused by protests and evictions. They believe there are several grounds on which they could bring their case, including the redactions made by the Chinese when they were asked to reveal detailed floor plans. The embassy would be the biggest of its kind in Europe and will be in close proximity to the financial district, sitting on the fibre optic cables that carry sensitive information to Canary Wharf. This forms the basis for protesters' claims that this embassy could serve as a base for spying. This is viewed as an attempt by the government to establish closer ties with Beijing, as Sir Keir Starmer is expected to be the first UK Prime Minister to visit the city since 2018. In the world of social media, peers in the House of Lords are being urged to vote in support of the social media ban for under 16s, with the legislation being debated today. This move would follow in the footsteps of Australia, which banned it last month. Computer science educator Steph Westbrook shares her thoughts on the ban and whether it would be a good option for the UK.
I think it's a reactive measure that they've taken upon themselves to do. I don't necessarily think it's wrong. I think they've acted in the best interest for their people, and there is clearly a lot of safeguarding concerns and risks to the use of technology, including things like sexual abuse, and it is very heavily documented. They take safeguarding very, very seriously, which you should do anyway. So actually, I don't disagree with their decision to ban it. I think they have got a higher population than what we do. But what I would say is over here, because we have a smaller population density, there needs to be a stricter regime in terms of mobile phone usage. But we should be encouraging our users to use their mobile phones, but do it safely, ensure that they are trained and educated well enough on the use of their mobile phones, so they're not abusing that extra technological piece of equipment that they're given by their parents or caregivers even. It's very difficult. I couldn't say that we should definitely ban it over here, but I do think we need to regiment ourselves stricter over here. I think there needs to be a heavier basis for compliance, including the use of social media, and organisations need to get hotter at looking at their customer base, because I don't think what they're allowing through is necessarily who they've got in front of them, and actually we should be safeguarding our kids a lot more vigilantly.
Now for entertainment. The BBC has announced a huge deal with YouTube, which will see them making content that is tailor-made to the streaming service. It will be primarily aimed at YouTube's digital native younger audience, with programmes featuring adverts when viewed outside of the UK, providing extra funds. It will include a mixture of entertainment, news, sport, starting with the Winter Olympics in February. And finally, the term 6-7 has been voted the Children's Slang Word of the Year, following a survey from Oxford University Press. Research revealed that 72% of the children who took part said that it was important to have words that they could only use with friends, but more than 1 in 10 children admitted they thought 6-7 had no meaning. The words aura and delulu came in second and third in the rankings. That's all from the Londoners newsroom. Your next update is at 1:50. From the Londoners newsroom at 1:50, I'm Keely Rainey. In international news, President Donald Trump has landed in Switzerland and is currently speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, addressing world leaders amid rising diplomatic tensions. The America First speech portraying Europe as off track and is expected to address Venezuela, Greenland, and the US economy, a senior White House official claims. Sir Keir Starmer has stated he will not yield over Greenland in response to Trump's tariff threats, which have intensified tensions. Additionally, the US president has sharply criticised the UK government's plan to hand sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, calling it an act of great stupidity, but UK officials have defended the agreement as strategic and legally necessary. Meanwhile, Prince Harry is giving evidence in his high-stakes privacy trial against Associated Newspapers Limited, publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday at the High Court in London. 7 public figures, including Sir Elton John and Elizabeth Hurley, accused the publisher of unlawful information gathering, such as phone hacking and deceptive practices, over 2 decades. In court, Harry says highly intrusive articles focused on his private relationships and alleges journalists obtained personal information, including his son's birth certificate, by improper means. The defense insists its journalists saw stories legitimately and argues the claims were brought too late. Peers in the House of Lords are being urged to support a ban on social media for under 16s, as an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill is debated today. The government has also launched a 6-month consultation on tighter online safety rules. Amit Kali, founder of For Working Parents and digital parenting expert, spoke about why he is in favour of social media ban for under 16s in the UK.
I've always been a supporter of not letting social media companies access children, so you'll notice I use that phrase as opposed to a ban. I appreciate it's a ban, I'm not an issue with that word. But when we say social media ban, it almost sounds like we're punishing the children. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're actually punishing social media companies because they have been unable to or unwilling to keep our children safe online. So for me, it's all about stopping them being able to access our children. So I am a massive advocate for not allowing them to access our children. I think the research shows, and my own personal experience having worked in education shows, that social media is incredibly harmful for young people. They're not able to navigate it properly. The safety parameters are not good enough to keep our children safe. So I'm massively for it. I applaud Australia for being brave, for taking the lead globally on something that, is something they're trying and testing. The problem in the UK is we're at risk of doing what we do best, and that is debating, discussing, and consulting for years and years and years. All the time, more and more children are going to get lost to the vulnerabilities and dangers of social media. So the mood of the public, I think, is very much overwhelmingly in favour of a ban of this kind. I appreciate that the voice of young people is important to listen to, but I take that with a slight pinch of salt, because not every young person is going to say, get rid of things that I really enjoy and really love. They don't necessarily know all the dangers that exist until sadly they fall into them. And I think sometimes as adults, they have to take decisions that are in the greater interest of young people. So I'm very much in favour of it happening here in the UK.
In other news, the Metropolitan Police are hunting 6 armed robbers who smashed into the Buhura Rolex boutique in Knightsbridge, stealing multiple high-value watches. The suspects, wearing motorcycle helmets, threatened staff and the public with weapons, including machetes, before escaping on 4 mopeds, leaving the motorcycle they used to ram the shop behind. No one was injured. The police's flying squad is leading the investigation, appealing for witnesses in the capital. Detective Chief Inspector Scott Mather said officers are working at pace to track the offenders and are determined to bring them to justice. No arrests have been made. More home buyers in the UK will be able to borrow up to 6 times their income under changes by Nationwide, the country's largest building society. The expanded lending applies to first-time buyers as well as existing customers moving home or remortgaging, up to 95% loan to value. Sole applicants will need a minimum income of £75,000 or £100,000 for joint applications, allowing someone earning £75,000 to borrow up to £450,000. Mortgage expert David Hollingworth said the move increases flexibility and could help buyers reach previously unattainable goals, but warned not everyone will qualify and professional advice is recommended. And finally, Crystal Palace striker Jean-Philippe Mateta has informed the club he wants to leave this January, amid reported interest from Aston Villa and Juventus. The 26-year-old is contracted until summer 2027, and Palace are not actively seeking a sale, saying only a significant offer could tempt them to part ways. In 185 appearances for the club, the French forward has scored 56 goals. An exit is not currently imminent.
Palace have already sold captain Mark Gahey to Manchester City for £20 million, and head coach Oliver Glasner will leave when his contract expires this summer. That's the latest. Your next update is at 2:10.
Your Londoners newsroom update at 2:10 p.m. with Macy Lewis. Trump said that Europe is heading in the right direction as he addressed the world leaders at Davos. Is not heading in the right direction as he addressed the world leaders of Davos. He said he loves Europe, but now he does not recognize it. He added that no nation can secure Greenland and other than the US, and Venezuela will make more money under the US. Earlier today, the Prime Minister said he will not yield on his principles about the future of Greenland under the threats of tariffs. Trump said he would impose 10% tariffs on European countries that oppose his plan to take over Greenland. Starmer said that pressuring allies is wrong, and in response, he said he is working hard to make sure that we do not get to that point. Interest rates rise for the first time in 5 months to 3.4%, with airfares, bread, cereal, and tobacco being key drivers. Analysts think this is a temporary blip and that price rises will slow down to the Bank of England's 2% target throughout this year. Inflation rose from 3.2% in the year to November and was higher than the forecast of 3.3%. The Bank of England's rate setting committee will meet on February 5th. Michael Saunders, a former rate setter at the bank, said that it was unlikely that the bank would reduce borrowing costs in February, but it expects to announce gradual cuts this year. Following on from last month's Australian social media ban for under 16s, the government has launched a consultation to bring the ban to the UK. This will look at various options, including increasing digital age and restricting potentially addictive features like infinite scrolling. Lords voted on Labour Children's Wellbeing and School Bill, which will force social media platforms to stop under 16s from using it within a year of it passing. This bill will include Ofsted being able to check phone usage policies when they assess schools. The government will seek youth and parental views, and we have child psychologist Mansi Gupte here, who supports the regulation for social media in children.
I think children using social media just too young and they get quite distracted as well, which is affecting their education, their day-to-day activities as well, and even their social interaction. Before the times of social media, people would just have this human contact and interactions, whereas now that has reduced a lot. And I think it's like an open ground for people like pedophiles about social media as for other adults who prey on small children but use indecent content and materials as well. So I think it's quite difficult on those lines. I believe it has to be supervised. Having a blanket ban on social media might be very difficult because it is just going to encourage children or people to have more exposure towards that. But in terms of what Australia has done, I think that is a good stand. But a complete ban might be quite difficult to monitor or exhibit basically for children. So I think any kind of ban, children are going to rebel against it. It is just like you're not allowed to go for a party and people are going to rebel. Anything that you say no to a teenager, I think they are just made up in a certain way that they are going to rebel against that. Because I've been working with children for almost 18 years now, what I have noticed and what children have told me is even though their parents have told them not to be on social media, they would create a fake account of somebody who's an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old and still have access to social media. So I'm sure they're going to find ways around it and play with technology there where they'll still be on social media. And children or adults are so addicted to social media. The phone is always with a person. It's become like a part of their body in a way that they can't be inseparable from it.
Prince Harry gave evidence in court today against the Daily Mail and said he could not complain about articles because of the institution he was in. The Duke accused associate newspapers of unlawful information gathering, including phone hacking. Harry said he was not able to complain due to the institution he was in, and he said the phrase often associated with the royals, never complain, never explain. Harry told the court that the moment private information came out about him, his circle of trust decreased. He claimed his information about previous relationships was not something he would have spoken openly about. A car went up in flames at Heathrow Airport Terminal 5 shortly before 8 a.m. today. Footage showed the engulfed car stopped near a pedestrian crossing with a queue forming behind it. Firefighters at the airport managed to extinguish the blaze before the fire London Brigade arrived. No one was injured in the incident and flights have not been affected. The airport is operating as normal according to the London Fire Brigade. And finally, BBC have announced that they will make shows for YouTube in a landmark new deal. The content aimed at younger audiences will include a mixture of entertainment, news, and sports, starting with February's Winter Olympics. The news programmes will feature adverts when viewed from outside of the UK, thus generating extra funds for the corporation. Some of the content may be available on BBC iPlayer and Sounds. That's all from the Londoners newsroom. Your next update is at 2:30 p.m.
This is the Londoners news update at 2:30 with Evie James. Firstly, Sir Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch have clashed over Donald Trump's planned Greenland tariffs and the Chagos Islands deal. Starmer says he will not yield on the UK's principles about the future of Greenland. Badenoch says she agrees with Starmer on Greenland, but urges the Prime Minister to scrap the Chagos deal, saying that the money should instead be spent on defence. The UK wants to give up the territory, a deal previously backed by the US administration until yesterday when Trump called it an act of great stupidity. Starmer says that Trump deployed these words on Chagos for the express purpose of pressuring the UK on Greenland. The US president spoke today at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He claimed that Europe is not heading in the right direction and went on to say that many parts of our world are being destroyed before our very eyes. His speech focused primarily on the economy, as he claimed that Venezuela will make more money in the next 6 months than the last 20 years, as he promised an oil boom. He addressed his government's capture of Venezuela's president, but said that the new Venezuelan leaders have been cooperating with the US. On Greenland, Trump claimed that only the US can guarantee Greenland's security and said there is nothing wrong with the US acquiring territories. Prince Harry has appeared in court today to give evidence against the publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday for allegedly unlawfully gathering information and breaching privacy. The Duke of Sussex is one of 7 high-profile claimants in the legal battle with Associated Newspapers Limited, and he told the court today of an uneasy relationship with the British media after the death of his mother. In his witness statement, Harry accuses the press of trying to drive him to drugs and drinking and making him paranoid beyond belief. Associated Newspapers Limited has denied the allegations of unlawful information gathering. It argues that the case has been brought too late and strongly defends its journalists. Peers in the House of Lords have been urged to vote in support of a ban on social media for under 16s in the UK. Former Schools Minister Lord Nash has proposed a change to a bill which would raise the age limit for social media users. This comes after a law was recently introduced in Australia to ban the use of some social media platforms for anybody under the age of 16. Some campaigners and children's charities have opposed the move, which the Prime Minister has not ruled out. Social worker Louise James, who specialises in safeguarding and preventing child exploitation, said this.
In terms of how I think that social media is impacting on children and young people, I think particularly it's about social skills and relationships, because children and young people don't go out as much as they used to. There's a lot more interaction at home in the bedroom and sort of communication over the internet, which is really not very good for those like independent skills and social skills. I think that the internet can be quite an unsafe place for children and young people, with access to inappropriate content and indecent images. I think is really harmful to children in terms of their understanding of healthy relationships and being able to form healthy relationships themselves. What do I think about Australia banning social media for under 16s? I think it's quite a big statement to do it for all under 16s. I think there's probably a lot of 14, 15, 16-year-olds who can manage social media appropriately. So I think for a lot of young people, that's quite a harsh ban. Also, if kids are accessing stuff online illegally, then you can't put as much regulation into it. So I think it's probably quite unlikely to work in terms of keeping young people safe. I do think there should be more regulation in the UK, because I think screen time and social media use probably does affect the well-being of children and young people. But then I do think that's probably the responsibility of parents as well as regulators. Social media companies need to take some responsibility for that, and parents also need to take some responsibility for that in terms of making sure their children are accessing content that is safe.
London has topped the list of the world's slowest driving capitals. Analysis found that drivers lost an average of 141 hours stuck in rush hour traffic in 2025, with the worst day of congestion coinciding with September's tube strike. One of Sadiq Khan's main transport policies as Mayor of London has been reducing speed limits from 30 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour, and according to Transport for London's website, more than half the capital's roads now have a 20 mile per hour limit. And finally, pop sensation Harry Styles has announced that the lead single from his new album will be released on the 23rd of January. It is titled Aperture, and it's the first new song from the former One Direction star since 2022, when he released Grammy Award-winning Harry's House. The British singer's 4th studio album, Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally, was announced last week and is set to be released on the 6th of March. That's all for the Londoners Newsroom. Your next update is at 2:50.
Hello and welcome to your Londoners News Update at 2:50. I'm Yumna Iqbal. The Duke of Sussex has just finished giving evidence against Associated Newspapers Limited, the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, telling the court that one of the latter's correspondents would turn up at places where no one could possibly know where he was. He said that it felt like full-blown stalking. He also noted the uneasy relationship he has had with the press since the death of his mother, Princess Diana, and said that they made his wife Meghan Markle's life a misery. The prince is one of 7 high-profile claimants alleging that Associated unlawfully gathered information and committed grave breaches of privacy over a 20-year period. Associated has said that the claimants are clutching at straws. The trial is in its 3rd day, with other famous claimants including Sir Elton John. Peers in the House of Lords have been urged to vote in support of a ban on social media for under-16s. The former Schools Minister Lord Nash has proposed a change to a bill which would raise the age limit for social media users. This comes after calls in the UK to follow Australia in imposing a ban for young people. Digital wellbeing expert and international speaker on online safety Parvin Kaur presents her thoughts on the matter.
I understand why Australia has gone for a ban. I think the reason is also because for many years, parents have been expected to manage children by themselves when they're online. And many platforms are designed to maximize attention rather than actually protect children. I do think that the UK should move in the same direction in terms of delaying access to social media for under 16 because these platforms are just not designed for children. In that sense, I think follow the principle behind Australia's decision to make sense. I do not think that the UK should just follow it blindly. There needs to be a much more robust plan around how the ban would actually work. Like what exactly counts as social media? It cannot just be big names like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Because what we have already seen in Australia is a shift towards smaller or less known platforms, for example, RedNote, where usage has gone up instead. So if those spaces are not being considered, then the risk just moves rather than disappear. So I support the idea that under 16 should not be on social media, but there needs to be a much wider plan. And, this could mean learning from Australia, watching how it plays out, putting a real pressure on tech companies, making sure Ofcom does their job in terms of the Online Safety Act with all the fines and everything that they want to do impose. And investing properly in education for both children and adults is super important. I don't think the approach should be just ban alone. I think it needs to be a much wider approach. So you can delay access, but at the same time, don't forget the education, don't forget the involvement of young people, and the pressure on tech companies to have a more safety by design at the center of what they do.
President Donald Trump has said that he is seeking immediate negotiations to acquire Greenland after ruling out taking it by force. He arrived in Davos, Switzerland earlier today to speak in front of world leaders at the World Economic Forum, with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer saying that he would not yield to pressure from the US president on the matter when speaking to MPs in London. Trump has dismissed suggestions that taking over Greenland would be a hit to NATO, claiming that the United States is treated very unfairly by the organization. London topped a list of the world's slowest driving capitals, with it taking an average of 3 minutes and 38 seconds to travel 1 kilometre in the centre of the city last year. Widespread 20-mile-per-hour speed limits in the capital have been blamed as Mayor Sadiq Khan has reduced the speed in an aim to reduce road casualties. According to the Transport for London website, more than half of the capital's roads now have the 20-mile-per-hour limit. A spokesperson for the mayor claimed that the limits have improved traffic flow and cut traffic jams. Blake Lively has referred to Justin Baldoni as a clown and a doofus director, according to new court documents from their ongoing legal case. The pair starred together in the film It Ends With Us, with Lively then suing Baldoni in 2024, accusing him of sexual harassment and waging a smear campaign against her. Baldoni denies these claims and countersued for $400 million last June, which was then dismissed by a judge. Lively's case is set to go to trial in May. And finally, scientists are rethinking what cattle are capable of after an Austrian cow has been found to use tools to scratch her back. Veronica, who hails from the Austrian countryside, has spent years perfecting the ability, using sticks, rakes, and brooms. The discovery suggests that cows may have far better cognitive abilities than we previously thought. That's all from the Londoners newsroom. Your next update is at 3:10. Thank you for listening.
From the Londoners newsroom at 3:10, I'm Jacob Antigua. Sir Keir Starmer has said that he will not yield over his support for Greenland amid Donald Trump's threats of tariffs. Speaking at Prime Minister's questions today, Sir Keir Starmer said, "Threats of tariffs to pressurize allies are completely wrong." The clash comes after Donald Trump had an apparent change of heart on the government's plan to hand over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch said she agrees with Starmer's stance on Greenland, but the Chagos Islands believes the UK is giving away territory that the UK owns. Since Australia's ban on social media for under 16s last month, debate has been sparked in the UK about a similar policy. While Keir Starmer has signalled that he is open to similar restrictions, the British government has so far favoured the Online Safety Act, which focuses on content regulation rather than outright age block. Supporters argue that a ban is the only way to tackle what they call a mental health epidemic among teenagers. However, Rani Govender from the NSPCC warns that a total ban could isolate vulnerable teens and push them towards more dangerous sides of the internet.
We think there are unintended consequences to this. If children are being kind of banned or restricted from access to some online spaces, it will likely push them to move to other areas which may be less regulated, have less oversight. So what we would like to see is the government introduce legislation that requires platforms use highly effective age assurance to make sure that their minimum age limits are being properly upheld. The second thing we'd then like to see is a more nuanced response to minimum age limits. So rather than the question being what should a minimum age be, we actually think we should be asking, why do we approach minimum age limits like this? It's not that there's just one age. So what we would like to see is platforms in their risk assessments thinking about what age can children be on our platform from, justifying why it's safe for children over that age. And if they're failing to make it safe enough, then action should be taken against them. And then maybe they should have to raise their minimum age limit if they can't prove it's safe enough for the children that are using it. It goes back to a safety by design approach and children and families being empowered to go online and in a safe way, in an enjoyable way, but making sure that when they want to step away and when it's having that dangerous impact on their safety and well-being, that's possible too. The government and Ofcom and tech companies should consult and listen widely when they're doing this work. There's a huge amount of expertise in civil society from organisations that are working with children day in, day out to think about what they need. I also think it's really important that they speak to children themselves and speak to people who've been impacted by the benefits but also the horrendous harms of the online world.
On Monday, The Times reported that Keir Starmer will soon announce a consultation to ban social media for under 16s in the UK. Thousands of people have been left with no water or low water pressure following flooding caused by large bursts of water pipes in West London. The area around Holland Park roundabout was submerged in water up to 3 feet deep at about 4 a.m. this morning. 40 firefighters dealt with the flooding and the 50 homes affected across the 1 mile stretch. Around 25 residents were evacuated using an inflatable rescue boat with no injuries currently reported. Thames Water apologised and said customers in the surrounding postcodes may have low or no water at all for the time being. A new Superloop Express bus is en route linking Abbey Wood and North Greenwich, launching this Saturday. The S11 service will run as a limited stop route via Thamesmead and Woolwich to cut through journey times and improve connections to the Elizabeth Line, DLR and London Underground. TfL said passengers will be able to travel for free during its first week, although they must still touch in with an Oyster or contactless card. The S11 replaces the 472 route and will run more frequently, with buses every 6 minutes from Monday to Saturday. An Alperton school is facing backlash after an 8-year-old Hindu student was discriminated against for wearing a tilak chandlo. Vickers Green Primary School deemed the religious mark a dress code violation, which prompted the child's parents to withdraw him from the school. The parents also alleged the boy was placed under special surveillance during playtime, making him feel isolated. Insight UK, an advocacy organisation for British Hindus, also claimed that 3 other Hindu children had left Vickers Green for religious discrimination. Lastly, the Natural History Museum is set to welcome some new characters next week as a free-to-visit Pokemon exhibition opens. The iconic Japanese franchise will take over South Kensington's Cranbourne boutique shop on Monday for an exclusive pop-up experience. As a part of the shop, fans will be able to buy limited edition Pokemon items that have been created especially for the London Museum. It comes as Pokemon celebrates its 30th anniversary this month, and what better place to celebrate the series about evolution than at a space that tracks the evolution of our planet. That's all today from the Londoners newsroom.